Hi, everybody. I am Dr. David Perrodin, and welcome to our Week 1 Fireside Chat for Educational Leadership, 655 Pupil Services, and Non-Discrimination with Viterbo University. If you have not watched the orientation video for this class, please do so. It'll help you navigate Moodle, understand the expectations of the syllabus. The video was emailed to you a few weeks ago as a link, and now it's also available in the announcements section in class. We do have one course text which is required, and that is School of Air's Rethinking School Safety in America. If you haven't bought this, please do so. We will be referencing this book and have several questions derived from it once we get into weeks 2, 3, and 4. So make sure that you get School of Air's Rethinking School Safety in America. All right. So let me do this little magic over here. Yes, and we're set. Okay, Week 1 Fireside Chat. Let's talk a little bit here about conflated terminology. All right. So conflated terminology, mainstreaming, inclusion, acceptance, tolerance. What do those mean? I imagine if you brought together your administrators, school counselors, psychologists, staff, and you had those 4 terms, and you said, write down 1 or 2 sentences defining each of those. After that, you compared those, you'd find out that people had different interpretations of those core terms for pupil services. So they're much different, right? If you're mainstreaming a student, mainstreaming is talking more to the physical environment, that the child is in the classroom. Now, inclusion would be a step beyond that. In the classroom, also having access to the instruction in the classroom. So it's much more than just a physical place. It's having access to the instruction. Let's talk about tolerance and acceptance. So tolerance is really a basement level of this whole terminology, right? If you tolerate something, it doesn't mean that you're going to learn about it, that you're going to debate it, that you're going to try to become informed about it. So we hear these things, teach tolerance, and really teaching tolerance has nothing to do with understanding somebody else. Teaching tolerance, we need to be better than that. We need to be a step above that, which would be acceptance. That's when you learn about other people and you learn how to best interact with people with disabilities, people English language learning students. So what is the best way that all of the students can interact with each other, that you have access to curriculum, that the parents have access to understanding the newsletters? How does all of this work? So again, we start off at this very bottom level of tolerance. We move up then to acceptance, which is understanding, and then mainstreaming, more physical environment, right? And then inclusion, which is access to the instruction and the other enrichment activities that happen. So it's a terrific video. Please watch it and think about ways in your district that these terms might become conflated. And if they are conflated, and most times they are, we don't have inter-rater reliability across our teaching staff, across our administrators. And then, when I'm talking about inclusion, someone might be thinking more about mainstreaming, or they might even be thinking about acceptance or tolerance. Or aren't they all the same, Dave? Well, no, they're not. Here's why we need to understand what the terms actually mean. All right. Every fall, I am contacted by many school districts asking, the right to select methodology, can we use that in our start of year professional development? Of course you can, because I wrote it. It's in a journal, and I don't have any updates to it. It's still very much relevant for anyone working in a school, especially pupil services. Now, working with third-party providers, making sure that if you have third-party providers coming to your school to provide services for students with autism, students with mental health needs, for example, that you understand not only the logistics of that, but the issues of supplanting educational services, how that plays into working with third-party providers. Just that you're very informed of this, because what can happen when third-party providers are working in the school district is something normally part of the child's school day is cut out, right? So if they're working with a third-party provider for 1 hour a day, then they're not getting 1 hour a day of some type of school instruction or school activity, meaning that they're not having that experience, that inclusive experience, and it comes down to potential potential discrimination issue that they're having this service supplanted. So just to become very aware of that, because we are seeing more services provided in the school setting. And then also when we have third-party providers that are working with schools, how we understand what the school has the right to. If a third party comes forward and says, I want you to implement this behavior plan or this reading curriculum, those would be considered by a school, but ultimately the school is responsible for instructing the student and wouldn't just implement something that an outside provider wanted the school to implement, even though there can be a lot of pressure when there are the parents, want this provided in a school. So it helps with having that dialogue. So it can be very productive, because otherwise these can be kind of tense discussions in schools. Please post your biography. You'll notice that I posted mine. I also posted a photo of our family trip to Dubuque, Iowa. If you ever get there, check out the Fenelon elevator. It is a lot of fun for just a little bit of money. They have a nice aquarium there too. But please post your bio. I will respond to your bio, and you'll see we have discussion questions. Make sure that by Thursday, January 16th, you've posted your response to discussion questions. And then, of course, responding to other students' questions. That's what makes this vibrant, is that you respond and say, I see that you posted this. I had something similar happen in my district, and this was how we responded to it. Or thanks for introducing this different perspective. I only had framed things out from this other perspective. Whatever it might be, I'm going to be very active, almost as if I was a student. So you'll get to see how I respond, and I usually copy parts of people's posts, and then I'll respond specifically to those, so there's some context. The week 1 assignment, I talked about a little bit in the orientation video, but making sure you have your third Friday count. Somebody in your district has that, so you just have to find the right person. And if you could find maybe the past few years of third Friday counts, that will be more informative, because it will show trends. For example, if your other health impaired numbers are increasing, there would be a natural set of questions that would go with that. Why? Why are the OHI numbers going up? So you do some investigation, you talk to a school psychologist in your district. And again, I know this assignment is due this week, so it's not this very in-depth assignment, and they say, yeah, we're getting more outside providers who are identifying doctors, identifying students with anxiety or depression. And then when we consider that in a school setting, we don't qualify a student as having anxiety or depression, but that might qualify within other health impaired, and maybe that's what was happening, or 504 plans. So, and then some deeper questions. So what does this mean for professional development? Are we having staff attend more professional development, more workshops, more conferences, working with students' anxiety, depression, mental health, English language learners, whatever is starting to show up in some of the data that people are sharing with you. So are we matching our professional development to what our data is telling us? Moving down further to our week 1 teaching annotation. So this is basically kind of our key points for this week. I'm going to just start off. You're going to have a lot of pressure, right, as a student services director, pupil services, to make decisions right away. Parents are going to want decisions made, responses to any range of issues between bullying, harassment, so forth. So make sure that you're taking the time to check with your other administrators, check at the building level. Are you aware of this? The parent had contacted me. Where are you at with investigating this, getting information, or what are the practices that you use for determining whatever, how students in a class are made aware that a peer might have allergies. Do you have, so the parent was asking me, they called, I wasn't sure of exactly what was happening in your building. So I indicated I'd be giving them a call back. And then the principal said, yeah, we have some new books that our librarians have, put in place, Aaron's, allergies and, so forth. And we're having those worked into our classrooms. So, but yeah, the parent, I'll give the parent a call. Just making sure you're not the person that the parent is going to write as the first contact. Sometimes, that's what people see, is they figure the higher they can go up in the administrative chain, the faster they'll get a response. But obviously, we want to make sure that we are involving our principals, our site-based leaders. So always act in the best interest of students. That is a term we're going to use a lot in class, best interest of students. Using your professional discretion and empowering your staff to have professional discretion. It's kind of, I've got your back, right? If you look at the context and the situation and say, in this specific situation, you made the decision that you had to. So, if it's a specific, a test accommodation or something that had to be done on a field trip or whatever, our overarching theme is we want to make sure that we are not involved in discriminatory practices, that we are promoting inclusion. So every child is unique. Child with a disability, individualized education plan, we need to be flexible. We need to have the ability to tailor, interpret policies and procedures so they can match students, so they can meet students, so they're not discriminatory. So working the best interest of the child. That's actually a legal term in education law. And more than 60 court cases were reviewed, education court cases, of what is best interest of the child. And it's divergent. Like there are different interpretations because it's always laminated to context and situation. So always context and situation. But it is part of education law that you need to act in the best interest of child, which is extremely important in preserving non-discrimination practices. Professional development must be ongoing. How many times at the start of the year we go through all of our in-services for staff on bullying, harassment, child abuse, how to refer for special education, and all of these types of things. And then once we get into the year, we don't do refreshers on those, or somebody else joins the school, new teacher comes in. We don't give induction to that person. And we have students who are joining our school all throughout the school year. We don't review the handbook with them. Here's what bullying and harassment means. Here's, threat of harm to self or others, how to make a report of it. We don't do that. So this is becoming very aware of what your professional development is, and also making sure that students with disabilities understand, for example, the handbook, because most handbooks are written at a 12th grade level. Even if it's a middle school handbook, you can take and copy and paste it into online readability tools, and it will be at a 12th grade level or above. So making sure that we don't have passive discrimination just in the way that we're instructing people, of saying, here's the handbook. Well, a student with a disability might not understand that. Actually, a lot of students probably aren't going to understand the handbook. Get it very descriptive, have students read through the handbook. What does this mean to you, right? But we don't do that. We don't get in that process. We need to be there. So working down a little bit more here, and just want to wrap up by a statement on divorced parents, or now students who have different, who have guardians who are other than the parents of the child. So how does this work for how those people make decisions on behalf of the child? Like if they come to an IEP meeting, can they Does their input have the same weight as it would for a parent? Or if it's divorced parents, do both have to agree for a decision? Or yes, is it that one has the educational rights, decision-making rights because of a court decree, right? All right. So getting into this, there's a lot of these questions that will come up. And what we need to do is to get ahead of these as pupil services directors. So that might mean contacting your school attorney and saying, here are 10 questions that we frequently get throughout the year, specific to pupil services and non-discrimination. Because ultimately, if you can get these answered and get these responses standardized, you're going to decrease practices which are discriminatory, even if it's unintended that they're discriminatory. But spend some time, talk to your superintendent, and usually it's a couple hours of lawyer's time. And if they'll come in and then present this for an hour and talk about it, I found this to be very helpful. Okay, very helpful, because these are types of things that you'll go over and over and over again in a school year, and you want consistency with this. Remember, inter-rater reliability, or that people across your buildings are doing things in a very similar manner for inter-rater reliability. So I'm going to stop there. I want these to be 20 minutes or under. Again, make sure that you have purchased the textbook for this class. Get your discussion questions in by Thursday and find out who has that third Friday count so you can get your data up for your special education percentages. If you can look at those over time and make some conclusions and talk to people. And then not only just looking at the data, but then the next layer of questions as a pupil services director of kind of where might we have to go to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students, that we're matching up our professional development, our staffing, and so forth. So, all right, everybody, let's have a great week one. And anything you do in Moodle, okay? If you post something, you can usually unpost it. If you put it in the wrong area, don't worry about that. Or just let me know. I can go in and I can delete anything that you've posted. So sometimes people say, I'm not sure exactly if I posted this in the right spot. After we have a week or two of class, you'll know this inside and out, right? But don't be nervous. If you put something in a location where you're not sure or it ended up, I can undo that. Just let me know. All right. Enjoy week one. Thanks, everybody.